This might be the smartest OLED TV purchase that you can make in 2026, but it's also the most confusing because depending on which version of this TV you pick, you're either getting a big upgrade or a TV that might not be worth the price. So here it is, the LG C6H 77-inch OLED. I bought it with my own money to be my new living room TV, and I've been using it every single day for the last 2 weeks, watching movies, gaming, binging Abbott Elementary and Survivor, and I can tell you right now, this is a really excellent TV. But is it actually worth the $3,700 price point? Let's find out. So first off, let me clear some things up. This is the LG C6H, not just the C6, and that matters a lot because for whatever reason, LG decided to split up their mid-tier TV lineup this year. The regular C6 comes in smaller sizes, 42, 48, 55, and 65 inches, whereas the C6H, the one that I got, is only available in 77 and 83 inches. And here's the key difference between these two TVs. The C6H gets a completely different panel. Now, previous years, LG made one C-series TV that came in every size between 42 and 83. However, this year, the larger TV gets an upgraded all-new panel, and the smaller ones don't for some reason. The 77 and 83 inch C6H is using LG's newer tandem OLED tech, the same class of panel that used to be reserved for their higher end TVs like the new G6. So that means this year when you're buying this TV, you're not just choosing size, you're also choosing performance. And while I don't own the C6, so I can't speak directly to its quality, the consensus across the internet seems to be it's a very incremental upgrade over last year's C5. It's still a great TV, but it's really just a small spec bump. And unlike the C6H, the C6 is still a WOLED panel. Even still, the regular C6 compared to last year's TV does have a faster processor, better AI upscaling. It's got a 165 Hz refresh rate versus last year's 144 Hz in the C5. All nice upgrades, but if you're leaning towards a new 65-inch C6 for $2,700, I would personally suggest checking out the older 65-inch C5 for $1,400 at places like Best Buy. You save like $1,300 for a pretty similar experience. I actually have the 2-year-old 65-inch C4 in my studio. It's great, but comparing it to a C5, I didn't think the more expensive price point at the time was worth it, so I opted for the previous year's version. And that's a position that buyers find themselves in currently. If they're looking at a C6, they should also look at the C5. When I was looking at the C5, I also looked at the C4, and I decided to go with the C4. I mean, let's be honest here, the C6 seems like a great OLED, but it's not a huge upgrade. But that's why the C6H was so appealing to me. I was replacing my 4-year-old 65-inch Sony OLED, and the idea of trying out a screen technology that is usually reserved for much more expensive G-series TVs, but in the much lower priced C line, was really interesting to me. And for me, the only real trade-offs between going with like a 65-inch C5 or C6 versus the 77-inch C6H was one, price, obviously, but also in order to upgrade to the new C6H, I would have to get the 77-inch version because it doesn't come in a 65-inch version, which I was personally excited about. My wife, not so much. She was happy with the older size. She felt like that one was big, so I do understand that 77 inches is a foot bigger, so I get it. It does take up more wall space. No problems there, but I was excited. But as you can see, we did it, and so far I've been really impressed. In fact, when I bought it from LG's website, which by the way, after tax and shipping came out to $3,945.11, oof, with the pre-order, you got free wall mounting, which I thought was a nice bonus. And while it didn't totally offset the price, it did take down the oof a couple notches. But all right, what does the C6H actually offer you when you're watching something? Because specs are one thing, but real world use is what matters. And the first thing that you notice with this TV is brightness. For an OLED, this thing gets bright, like shockingly bright, especially at night. And seriously, for an OLED, it is a big step up. Watching HDR content, Netflix, YouTube, movies, highlights really pop. And compared to my older 2022 Sony Bravia XR-A8, it's about double the brightness, at least max brightness. That TV had a max brightness of about 600 to 850 nits, whereas this new LG C6H can hit up to 2000 plus nits at peak brightness. So our TV is mounted by a window, but it doesn't ever really get direct sunlight. However, the older OLED during the day could seem pretty dark. But with the new LG C6H, that never really seems to be an issue for us. I do have it set to adaptive brightness in filmmaker mode, so it changes based on the content and the environment, but for the last few weeks, brightness has never been an issue, which is refreshing to say for an OLED. I mean, seriously, in practice, sunlight and reflections aren't ever really an issue anymore. And bright things on TV like explosions or bright lights at night, they all feel more intense and more realistic. Now, this is all due to the new tandem OLED panel, which pushes brightness and color at the same time, not just one or the other. Of course, it's not perfect because nothing is, but it's finally at a point where I wouldn't worry about using it in a bright living room. Now, beyond brightness, the image itself just feels more dimensional. There's more separation between objects, the foreground and background, everything just feels layered instead of flat. And comparing it side by side with an older LG C series TV, or even a newer LG OLED, it really does make a big difference. Colors look richer overall, especially in warmer tones, skin tones look more natural, and of course, because it's an OLED, and this is true for most OLEDs, dark scenes look great. Perfect black, excellent contrast, that part hasn't changed. But with this TV, you're getting all of that with more punch behind it. But now let's talk about the internals, the thing that you don't really notice until you start using it. And that's the new LG Alpha 11 Gen 3 processor. It's the same one used in their more expensive flagship models, and it's used across the entire C lineup. Whether you're getting a C6 or the C6H, you are getting this new processor. So what does it actually do? Well, according to LG, it makes streamed content look cleaner, it upscales lower quality videos, and if you want it to, it can make motion look smoother. And while I don't have a C5 TV to compare it against, I do have the 2-year-old C4, and I definitely notice a difference. Again, it's not night and day, but it is there. So because of this chip, even when you're not watching perfect 4K HDR content, things still look really good, and outside of the panel, that's honestly the biggest upgrade this year. Now, if you're gaming, this TV is awesome. You've got super low response times, high refresh rates, variable refresh rate, again, 165 Hertz this year versus last year's 144, which is a nice bump, and that is across the C6 and the C6H line. But what actually matters in real world use is how it feels, and it feels fast. There's no noticeable lag, there's no motion blur issues, it's very responsive, and because it's an OLED, you get that almost instant pixel response time. And there were times playing on this that I did feel like I was playing on a gigantic monitor, which I was really surprised by. But now I should talk about the remote, because that really is the thing that you're interacting with the most or holding the most out of this TV. Hopefully you're not holding the TV very often. But speaking of the remote, it's small, which I like. It is significantly smaller and slimmer than my C4 remote. And it comes, in my opinion, with just enough buttons to make it simple and minimal, but not overly simple to where like you don't have the buttons that you're looking for. Of course, it's got that classic LG Wiimote style cursor, which I love. My wife prefers a standard D-pad, but to each their own. And like most modern remotes, it does have preset buttons for commonly used apps. However, it is missing a YouTube button, which is my most used app, so I don't love that. This remote does, however, have a solid voice control feature that generally gets my commands correct, and the AI assistant can do more than I would expect, like opening specific apps and finding weirdly named YouTube videos, which is kind of crazy. Like some of the names of videos that I watch are ridiculous. You don't need to know what the names are, but the TV can figure it out. It's also got a customizable button with a little heart on it to the top right of the remote, kind of like exactly opposite of the power button. You can set it to a few different things like opening specific apps, muting the TV, or even changing the inputs. Overall, I'm pretty happy with the remote, but it's not perfect. The volume and channel buttons are not like your standard vertical buttons. Instead, they're like these little paddles that you kind of have to flick, which I don't love, but it's fine. You get used to it. It's a good remote. I like the size of it, especially compared to the older C4 remote. Now, when it comes to the TV speakers and the sound that you get, the C6H is surprisingly capable. It sounds significantly better than I expected. It's clear, it's crisp, the bass was actually pretty decent. It's also surprisingly loud, which I never would have expected, but I would definitely recommend not using this TV with the built-in speakers and instead getting some kind of external sound system. Now, I personally opted to go for the super sleek silver and white Bose Smart Ultra soundbar. Full disclosure, I actually reached out to Bose to see if they would provide this for the video, but the reason I did so was not because I just wanted free stuff, it's because I really like that soundbar particularly, and that was the one I was going to buy anyway, so I figured why not ask them for it and throw in some promo here and talk about why I actually like it and why it was the one that I was going to spend my money on. First of all, I think it looks amazing, especially in this color with my gray wall. The build quality is excellent. You've got this really nice glass top, which I think looks very, very premium, and the sound obviously is incredible. Of course, having smart in the name, you know it can connect to some things, and it obviously connects to the Bose app, so you have a lot of customizability when it comes to how you want your sound to sound. It also comes with this nifty headband that you can use to calibrate the soundbar for your space. It's part of the system that they call APTHCRY. Now, obviously, you don't have to wear this headband every time you watch something, that would be insane, but you do throw it on like a set of headphones the first time you set up the system. To do this, I literally sat at my favorite spots on the couch around the room and ran the room sound test with the headband on, and it tuned the sound perfectly for those spots of the living room. Tuning also made the spatial audio super immersive. Now, it comes with Dolby Atmos, and even though the sound is coming out of just the bar underneath the TV, it does simulate surround sound really, really well. Now, of course, you can upgrade the system by adding the Bose sub and rear speakers, which connect wirelessly to the soundbar, and you can buy them either in a set or separately. That said, I only have the soundbar itself, and it sounds pretty great just on its own. I would choose the Bose Smart Ultra soundbar specifically for your setup if you're looking for natural sound, excellent dialogue clarity, and solid wireless connectivity. Now, I'll link it, of course, through the YouTube shopping tab on your screen, through the links in the description below if you want to grab it through an affiliate link and help out the channel, and of course, I'll link the TV and any other TV that I mentioned through the affiliate links and through the YouTube shopping tab on your screen. But seriously, if you're looking for a good soundbar, this is a great way to go. Okay, but now though, let's compare the specs of the C6H, the one that I have, to the flagship LG G6 OLED, because this is where the value conversation really starts. The G6 is still better, let's be honest about it. It's a more expensive, higher end TV. It is better overall. It gets brighter. In fact, apparently you can get up to 3000 nits of peak brightness. It also has an anti-reflective coating called reflection-free premium coating that handles reflections better than the C6H. And it also apparently comes with an even more advanced version of the tandem OLED panel that you have in the C6H that has a feature that LG calls hyper radiant technology. technology, which apparently boosts color accuracy, reduces color banding, and results in more vivid and detailed picture. Now, since I don't have the G6, I can't speak to the difference and how noticeable it is, but the tech is there. Now, all this together means that the G6 should look cleaner and more consistent overall, especially in very bright rooms. The G6 also comes in a lot more size options that all offer the same panel, processor, and reflective coating. For example, you can get the G6 in as small of a size as 55 inches, which, let's be honest, is not that small, but compared to the largest size, it can look kind of like a monitor because the largest size is actually 97 inches, which is, in my opinion, absurd, but there you go. Whereas the C6H only comes in 77 inches and 83 inches. But here's the thing, the gap between the upper mid-level C6H and the G6 is much smaller than it used to be. The C6H gets you most of the way there, especially in movies and in normal viewing, and it does more for less money. Like, we're talking hundreds less at the size. The one that I have, the 77-inch C6H, comes in at $3,699, whereas the 77-inch G6 comes in at an $800 premium of $4,499. Now, getting up to the 83-inch C6H, you're gonna spend $5,299, whereas the 83-inch G6 is $6,499. Now, to be fair, the C6H doesn't have a 97-inch option, but if you're looking to grab a 97-inch G6, you're gonna pay an absurd $24,999. But this is the main reason why I think the C6H is such a good buy, because watching movies at night, the C6H is basically the same experience as the much more expensive G6. Gaming, basically the same experience. Bright daytime viewing, sure, the G6 is better, but not by that much. Of course, there will be less reflections on the G6 because of the better coating used on the screen, but listen, unless you have a super bright room, the difference isn't that massive. All right, so let's answer the big question. Is the LG C6H worth the price? Honestly, I think so, but really only in one specific situation. One that a lot of people have, but it's still specific compared to the entire TV buyer's market. If you're buying the 77-inch C6H, this is one of the best value high-end TVs you can buy right now, because you're getting near flagship brightness, flagship level processing, and top-tier gaming performance at a much lower price, or I guess $800 lower price than the G6. But if you're instead looking at the smaller C6, I don't think it's as compelling. And if you already have a recent OLED, the upgrade might not be necessary unless you're stepping up to the larger model. So here's the bottom line. The LG C6H is not the best OLED TV of 2026, but it might be the best OLED purchase that you can make this year because it gives you most of what flagships offer without paying full flagship price. I think it might actually be the perfect high to mid-range TV. Okay, maybe not perfect, but the best value TV in its price range. The only problem is that LG made things way more confusing than they needed to be. It's kind of like when Nintendo released the new 3DS. It was a new 3DS, but it was also called the new 3DS. Like, why do brands do things like this? This video could have been 10 minutes shorter, but whatever. And it sucks because if you end up buying the wrong one without realizing it, you're not gonna get this experience at all. The lower end C6s are still great TVs, but if you're looking at those TVs, save some money, get the older one. It's not that different. But listen, that's just my thoughts. That's just my experience with the C6H. I love it. I think it's an incredible TV. And if you're looking at the C6H specifically, I say get it. But let me know your thoughts. Let me know if you're grabbing a C6H or a G6 or a C6 or a C5 or any OLED TV this year in the comment section down below and which one you guys are grabbing. As always, thank you so much for watching. Make sure to subscribe if you haven't yet, and I'll see you all in the next one.